Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and this is my guzzle nuzzle, Abram Buhner. And today we're going to be talking about the games that we have been playing in 2021, the best ones of that list. This is a very revered series of videos. Which games did Abram and I enjoy most that released in 2021? Everyone has been waiting to see and know, and today you're going to find out because here we are talking about these games. But if you want to talk to us about your favorite 2021 games, because there's a high likelihood that you disagree with us wholeheartedly, you can join our Discord, link is in the description, or you can leave a comment. That's also an option. But you can also ring the bell and subscribe, which every one of those things gives me hope for the universe. And if you don't,
sure.
I'm just going to sit and wallow in despair. The end
Now,
of humanity is nigh.
Tucker, we're already living in a realm of despair because we have not yet gotten Donkey's top games of 2021. So we have to fill the void.
That's true.
And we're going to, in Donkey's style, we are doing things a little bit irregularly because we're giving you 13 games. But also, like Donkey, we already recounted our favorite games we played this year that didn't come out this year, but in a separate video. So go check that out if you haven't already. But Tucker, do you want to give any honorable mentions before we start with our number 13s?
Well, I don't want to give... Okay, I do. I want to give
two
things. I want to give honorable mentions, a couple of them, just a handful.
Yes.
But I also want to give a big caveat. There's still a lot of things that I do want to play and complete from this year. I'm not finished doing my 2021 deep dive. I've played a lot of games here. Most of the games I want to play, I played already. And I'm just picking off the last few stragglers. So there's still in the future, there could be ones that crack this top 13, but obviously this is of the moment. This is as of January 4th when we're recording. So games such as Inscription, which I do plan on playing, games like Loop Hero or Hitman 3, or even something like Monster Hunter Rise and No More Heroes 3, I never got a chance to check out, and I never got to beat Death's Door, which would probably have made it on this list if I had. So all those are caveats. You know what? I'm gonna not do any. I'll do one honorable mention, which is my number 14, which is Resident Evil Village. Which is a game I played earlier this year. And the more I've thought back on it, the more I'm like, oh, that was a really good game.
That's a good one. I'll make the same caveat that there's a couple of games I feel pretty much done with the year's crap of games. There's a couple leftovers. Before Your Eyes is one I really wanted to play.
True, yeah.
Psychonauts 2. I think those are the two, and other things like Sable or Lake. But I think that Before Your Eyes and Psychonauts 2 are probably the two big ones that I did miss.
That could have cracked.
Yeah, that probably could have and probably would have cracked the list. But the only honorable mention I want to give is to Mario Golf Super Rush, which I had a shit ton of fun with, and I think finally was finished by the end of the year. But I just couldn't in good consciousness put it any higher on my list than it is because it launched such a fucking sorry state.
Yes, it
did. Sorry, Mario Golf.
Our series of discussions on Mario Golf Super Rush is, I think, one of the pinnacles of Backlog Banter's 2020.
I think so. There are a couple.
We really talked about that fucking game a lot.
That was a great arc. BDSP had a great arc. BDSP had a great arc that pulled in a lot of fucking views too.
Yeah, that video is still getting views. I'm proud.
Yeah. But Tucker, do you want to hit your number 13 first or mine?
I'll have you hit yours.
I'll hit it. My number 13 is Townscaper.
Oh, interesting.
Townscaper, as we talked about on BLB recently, is such a wonderful little game in how empty it is. It's a game where you build towns, you escape them, if you will, and that's all there is. There is no meta game. There's no structure around this. As the developer Oscar Stahlberg says, it really is more of a toy than a game. And I find that design philosophy to be incredibly refreshing. And I find this gameplay experience to be incredibly relaxing. Towards the end of my semester, where it was going fucking nuts and I was losing my mind, just hopping in a Townscaper every night for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, wonderful experience. So Townscaper, my number 13.
Yeah, that's interesting because that game actually released in 2020, but the Switch port is a 2021 game. So I don't know if you want to consider that caveat.
I do, and the reason is because the game launched in early access last year. Its proper release was this year.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'm sorry. I just wanted to check. I thought that it was a 2020 game, and we're both right.
Yeah, that's actually a great thing to note because on this list I have neither Knights of the Old Republic nor what's it called? Tetris Effect Connected, which are two of my favorite games of the year, which I played this year, which came out as ports this year, but because they are not originally from this year, they are in the other video. So if you want to hear me talk about those, go check that out. But Townscaper, I think is different because its proper release was this year.
Sure.
God damn it.
I'll allow it. I'll allow that.
Well, thank you.
Now, this is an interesting one my number 13 is tentatively It Takes Two. Now, this is only on this list and not higher because we've only played the first chapter of it. Yes. Now, that first chapter was better than most games that I played this year, and I think obviously deserving of the high price that it got. I was seeing the spark just from the hour and a half that we played of it. Now, I haven't finished the game. It will certainly be higher on my list once I do finish it. But I wanted to put it on here because I enjoyed that first chapter of It Takes Two more than my number 14 and 15.
Understandable.
Resident Evil Village and Metroid Dread.
There's really no shame in that.
Yeah.
Most people don't fucking beat games. So if you played the hour and a half as I did, and I'm never going to play the game again as I'm going to, that's totally valid. Well,
hit me with your number 12.
My number 12.
Let's move on from that.
My number 12 is Severed Steel. Severed Steel is a real fucking bangarang of a game. This is the real John Wick game. This is the most fun bullet time has ever been in a fucking game. Max Payne brought it to the scene, and Severed Steel says, give it a break. I'm the big man now.
Sure.
And in doing so, the game is perfectly crafted. It's only a couple hours long. You can beat it in probably two easy sittings. And it knows just when to introduce a new idea, a new level design concept, to where from the first minute to the last, you're consistently engaged and challenged in new ways. It's a great example of taking a core gameplay concept of bullet time and just expanding it perfectly across an appropriately length experience. So it's only on PC right now. It's coming to console. Fucking check this game out when you can.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Good for it. My number 12 is one that might surprise you, being this low for the average Joe, but this high for the average me, which is Halo Infinite.
Sure.
I actually cracked my top of the year 2021. Good for you, Halo Infinite. They actually finally made a good Halo game. I know, it's crazy. Halo Infinite was a lot of fun. We had a full review of it. We've talked about it an absolutely inordinate amount. It's probably the game that I played most this year. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I played the campaign. I went back to Zeta Halo to clear up some stuff. I've been playing multiplayer on and off, but more consistently than I usually do multiplayer games. And I've had a great time with this game. I do think that the linear story design holds it back quite a bit. And some story decisions ended up leaving me on a tad bit of a sour note, but what's there and what I think Halo Infinite as a structure, as a new concept, as 343's magnum opus introduced are a great direction for the series. And I do consider myself at least now, modern Halo fan as of 2021. So good on you, Halo Infinite, for finally making me kind of get a shit.
I hate Halo Infinite. My number 11 is WarioWare Get It Together.
Oh, fascinating.
WarioWare Get It Together is a lovely little game. I think that it found the perfect opportunity to sneak in and and find a great new audience here on Switch. I think that WarioWare as a series is quite compelling, but for me, it always was missing something. And I think that the introduction of the multiple character gimmick here adds a fun new dimension to the micro games that has always been there, but now feels even more interesting. And because of that, because of how zany it is, how fun it is, it just felt like the type of game that Switch needed at the moment. And it's the sort of thing I'd like to see more of on Switch, a more bite-sized handheld skewing game, really wacky zany characters and everything. A lot of the praise you can offer to the entire WarioWare series applies to Get It Together, but I think that the invention of the reinvention of its core concept, the micro game, is not something you can apply to a lot of the series, even when it did go for different control gimmicks or whatever. So I'm a big fan of this game.
WarioWare Get Together is a game that I had a great time with, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that game in terms of my experience with it. It didn't crack my top, but that doesn't denote it as anything bad. We did a review. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Will I go back to it? No, you're fucking kidding me. But it was a moment in time, and I certainly had a good time with it. Moving on to something that is actually going to be maybe one of the most discussed portions of today's video is my number 11, Bowser's Fury. Now, this is interesting because as the year has progressed, my friend who's hiding his nose has continued to lower and lower and lower on the game. I have, frankly, done quite the opposite. Reflecting on my time with Bowser's Fury and the criticisms that I levied against it in our review, which we did when the game came out, I've realized that this is actually kind of the perfect idea for Mario. And every moment that I spent with it, maybe I had a few problems with the structure, but overall, it's the next step in Mario, and I really do believe that.
Sure.
I think it's a unique idea to have ostensibly a new game, and I'll count as its own game for fucking ever.
That's fair. I think that's definitely fair.
To a remaster of a game that is already great, makes that package really good. The ways that it innovates on the Mario formula and allowing you to switch between power-ups to fit your scenario, to go wherever you want, to dodge things, to introduce Fury Bowser that puts a ticking time bomb on things. Everything about this game is very forward thinking for the Mario franchise, and we don't see these sort of big steps forward very often. I think it's a very exciting game, and frankly, if I go back and replay it, it's probably gonna end up being one of my favorite 3D Marios, which is a franchise that I categorically love. There's no entry in it. Well, that's not true. Actually, I don't like 3D Land, but I really do think this game is great.
Yeah. I mean, you're certainly in the majority there, and for good reason. I think what's kind of neat about Bowser's Fury is it almost feels like we're playing like an internal test of the next Mario game. I feel like Nintendo released like their little development environment that they've been fucking around with, and I think that that's interesting. I just think that for me personally, it didn't hit because of that. It felt a little bit too repetitive. It felt like the platforming challenges were too shallow. I felt like it felt like I wasn't crazy about how the power-ups were implemented. But I would like to give it another shot. I've actually been just toying with it, but toying with the idea of replaying it because it is so short, it's so digestible.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's actually one thing that gives it a positive, and I don't think it has the time to get repetitive. Frankly, it's the shortest 3D Mario game. It's one of the shortest Mario games,
definitely.
And especially if you don't like what I did my first time, go for literally everything. I 100% of that game. You can beat it in 2.5 hours. So I think that makes it really special, and that bite-sized nature is something I've started looking more and more for out of games. And if I'm not spending 8 hours trying to fucking grind my way through New Super Mario Bros. U, which it didn't take me that long, but you get the idea. I'd rather have this sort of bite-sized Mario experience, and I think it was very complete, cohesive, and tightly crafted because of that.
Yeah, sure. I think that you're probably right that this is the future of Mario. I just hope that there's more meat on that bone, and not just in terms of the game being 10 times bigger in terms of gameplay hours, but also just in terms of a little bit more invention, and because the actual Fury Bowser becomes repetitive, becomes archetypal. I think that the idea of a sandbox Mario is quite good. I just wasn't exactly sold on the execution just yet. So we'll see. My number 10 is a Switch title, and it was perhaps the most impressive Nintendo published game of the year, and that was Monster Hunter Rise. I think Monster Hunter Rise absolutely fucking bangs. Now, for me, I found that the 15 hours I spent fighting Magnamalo and seeing the credits and finishing the game, sorry, Monster Hunter fans, I consider myself to finish the game. That was perfect for me. I'm not necessarily one who's going to get into the long tail grind of going for the higher rank monsters and getting the full armor sets and everything. But as a contained adventure, defending Kimura Village, seeing the base monsters before you get to the post-game stuff was really exceptional. I think this game looks beautiful on Switch. I think it is the most impressive technical game on the platform. And I just think that when you get that soundtrack pumping and you're fucking hunting the monster, and I got my big swords on me and they're fucking made of the bones of another one, it's a great gameplay loop. It's not one that compels me into the post game, but it's one that carried me to its credits quite effortlessly. So I'm more of a Monster Hunter fan now than I was before, and I do intend to play Sunbreak and see if maybe that's gonna be the one that gets me into the long tail of the franchise also. So
interesting, yeah. Again, that's definitely one I want to give a try. Monster Hunter is a franchise that I would say eludes me, but that's technically not true. I have I think 3 on 3DS, was fucking one of them. And I have it's not 3. That's not the one that's on.
No, 3 is on 3DS.
I have a 3DS one.
4 is definitely on 3DS. So say it's 4.
And I have a World on Steam, which I played approximately 30 minutes of, so that barely even counts.
You saw the whole game.
Yes. But Monster Hunter, I've always looked at and like, this is really overwhelming. Like, there's a lot of steps to this fucking game. And of course, that's because I haven't actually played the tutorial of a Monster Hunter game that's lets you know what the mechanics are and stuff like that. But I might come back within the next 5 years and have played a Monster Hunter game.
Sure. But before your 26th birthday, you might be a Monster Hunter fan.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's good to set reasonable goals.
My number 10 is a game that doesn't have any analogs. Before Your Eyes is probably the most unique game of the year in terms of innovating on gameplay structure and control. The idea of playing the entire game,
Control.
Because I said control, fuck off. The idea of playing an entire game without touching anything except for yourself. No, don't. This game is sad. It's about a child. Do not touch yourself while playing it. But through only your eyes being tracked by your webcam, is very novel, and it allows the game to attach to a physicality of yourself that games don't usually have. You are playing this game through blinking, through looking around just a little bit, and I think there might be a little bit of mouse, but the idea of you need to leave your eyes open in order to continue, and that obviously physically strains you to a certain degree, connects you to the moments and the story in a way that can be kind of frustrating, as moments are fleeting, as you are, fuck, I want to keep my eyes open. Damn, I blinked. Oh, and I missed half that conversation, but it moves forward. You got to keep going. And that's all wrapped around a great art style, really good voice acting, a lot of interesting story choices that allow you to sort of branch off and make the story your own. And a lot of interesting themes about loss, about family members, memory, all this kind of stuff. It really is a very special game.
This is the best game of 2021. I just didn't play it. That's my opinion on Before Your Eyes. It's an imminent must play for me. I think probably before the month is out. Because controls is the next field of immersion. It's not graphics anymore, it's about control.
Sure.
And I think that this game nails that. The idea of using the webcam is so fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. This game is brilliant. I can't wait to play it.
I think the greatest part about it is this isn't just a cool idea that's in some fucking Unity game that looks like ass. Like beautiful visuals, great soundtrack, great story, like high production value, and a really cool gimmick. So I
cannot fucking wait to play it. That is the biggest
also it's only
omission from my list.
Not even 2 hours long. So go for it.
I can go 6-7 hours without blinking, so the game's gonna be real long for me. My number 9 used to be my number 3, but now it's moved down a multiple 3. I don't know how numbers work, but it's Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania.
Oh, okay.
But Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, in hindsight, I think that it could have done a little bit more. I think by being in that Banana Blitz HD engine, it kind of lost some of its luster visually, in terms of its physics. So that definitely let me down a little bit. But when I hear fucking hey banana, it does something to my nervous system I can't explain.
Yeah, no, that's a great song.
Because I've loved Monkey Ball since I was a little fucking child.
Yeah, you've always loved playing with your balls.
Oh, do you know it? But Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, one of my favorite games on PS2, and reconnecting with those classic 3 games, that design philosophy, that really great arcade gameplay, and such a feature-rich package as this.
Oh yeah,
it's really special. I think this is quite an excellent release from Sega, even if there was some area for improvement. And my big hope is that this segues into a new Monkey Ball game.
It's possible.
Give me a new Monkey Ball game.
All right,
the Barrel of Monkeys. You can say it's a hell of a game.
Hell of a game. My number 9 is not the most contentious between the two of us, because you have not experienced this, but I would say it's probably the most contentious game on my list, at least, which is 12 Minutes. It's a game that is very controversial, but I've actually grown to respect it a lot more since I beat it. I gave my thoughts on BLB the week as I was playing it, and as I've thought about it more, the idea of taking a story concept of a very deep spoiler that can be very offensive to some people, and just taking it and running with it, I think is very powerful, and is a very strong creative decision. And I've learned more about the creator, about the development history of this game, and I respect the hell out of it. And I think it's one of the most compelling gameplay experiences I've had of the year. Me sitting there with my friends, fucking piecing together this story and saying, "Oh, if we try that and we set up this, and if you get the fucking fork and you stab it into the guy and then you springboard off it," none of that is true. the amount of fun that we had
Yeah.
speculating about the story and planning out the time loop and trying to remember we sat down and played it in one playthrough or in one sitting because we just could not stop. We wanted to see what the end was, and the end obviously frustrated a lot of people, but it didn't for me, and it actually really gave me a huge amount of respect for this game that I feel other people are kind of lacking. But I think this is one of the most interesting releases of this year, even if that controversy is a part of that.
Yeah, I think this is the game I'd tip my cap to on the street, but I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna go over there and give it a big kiss on the mouth, if you know what I'm saying. Which is to say, I'm not sure I'll play it myself. However, you told me what the spoiler is. I think it's kind of compelling that the game would attempt to tackle that subject matter. So I think it's nonetheless quite an interesting game. And typically you're making at least an interesting piece of art if there's such a polarized response to it. So now let's talk about a game that's really caused a lot of ire amongst the larger gaming industry, which is my number 8. And I hesitated to even put it on this list. Well, that game is Yinglet. Yinglet is a game that none of you have heard of, unless your name is Daphne and you're in a Discord server and you recommended it to me.
Yes.
This is the most recent addition to the list, and I think it is one of the most wonderful platformers I've played in a long fucking time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Essentially, Yinglet it's a top-down platformer where you play as the game describes, a space dolphin, and you're jumping between bubbles. That's the game. But the ways that they contextualize it with this incredibly seamless, silky movement, the ways that the level design is complicated, the way that it communicates a lot through its soundtrack and through its visual style is so inventive. The platforming genre, especially in the indie space, tends to fall into archetypes of we're doing the Mega Man.
You're doing
Donkey
Mega
Kong.
Man, DuckTales, Donkey Kong, or Mario.
Or you're fucking sticking them together and calling it Shovel Knight and making one of the best games of all time, but you're still sticking other things together. This really isn't doing that. I said it's kind of like Ho-Hokum, but nobody knows what Ho-Hokum is, so it might as well be its brand own idea. It's so inventive, it's so short, it's so cheap. I think that this is a must play. And as a platformer fan, the idea that they were able to eke out a new concept out of such well-trodden ground is incredibly, incredibly impressive.
I'm gonna play that game probably either tonight or tomorrow. So
it's a great
tip
game.
my cap to Yinglet. There's a chance it's on my list tomorrow after this recording. And considering that I'm editing this, maybe I'll put a little asterisk and say, oh, hey, actually it made the list. Or I'll say, actually, Yinglet kind of sucks, but I haven't played the game yet, so who knows. My number 8 is the game that was intended, quote unquote, to win Game of the Year, which is Deathloop. This game obviously got a lot of critical praise. It is one of the biggest games of the year. It's from one of the biggest publishers of the industry, and I really do think that it deserves almost all the praise that it's gotten. My heat on it has died down as I've left the game behind and discovered some things that are a little more small scale this year. But Deathloop, I do think, is kind of the fresh invention of style in the AAA space that we don't see very often. This game has a very strong core concept and mixed with a very strong core narrative and core style. The visual style, the music, the movement, the combat, the environment design, all of that is very focused. And I think what this game does is allow you to connect to a set of worlds in a more deep and mechanical way than we're used to in a big Bethesda game, because this is a Bethesda game where you're passing by in a Skyrim or a fucking Fallout. But Deathloop has really strong everything, in my opinion, and it's definitely one of the games that I think will end up standing the test of time from 2021. I do think it's one that, looking back, it's going to be one of the few that sort of eke out over that bar and continue to be talked about. Whether or not we get a sequel in the future, of course, we don't know, but it has potential. But even if it never gets that potential, I think it works really great as its own one-off thing. It's a great one-off idea from a company, Bethesda, that doesn't often get one-off ideas, and I think it's really cool because of that.
Yeah, I wish I liked this game, because I think it's such a fantastic new IP, and we need more new IP.
Yeah.
Arcane's a great team. cutting their teeth on the fucking Dishonored, Prey, right? They know what they're doing. And Deathloop is a very strong creative vision, even if it's not one that ended up connecting with me. So
yeah,
I think that's a good poll. My number 7, Tucker, is again probably higher on your list. So you can choose to talk about it or not. And that is Tome.
My number 7 is Tome. That's actually true. I'm not joking. So we got a little Tome rock box going on here.
Tome is really lovely. Tome is like if you fucking grabbed a little short hike and a fucking little Paper Mario and Animal Crossing and shoved all this shit together. It's a bite-sized and heartfelt experience that made me emotional over a fucking family of balloons.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a fun section. Yeah.
It does a great job of just being irreverent and fun. And because of that, while I think it could use a little bit more meat on that bone for the afternoon you're going to spend with it, it's just so charming, and that charm really carries you through.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intention of it being very laid back, very small scale, and intended for you to take in the small scaleness in detail. I mean, these are hand-drawn environments, but they're very detailed. There's a lot of nooks and crannies to explore, and taking out your camera and looking around in first person reveals an entirely new depth to the environments. There's a ton of variety. There's tons of characters to meet, tons of little side quests to do, tons of little collectibles. And I ended up platinuming the game in one sitting because I was just in love with everything this game had to offer. And I do think it's one that is maybe overlooked this year. Frankly, I don't hear almost anyone talk about it. But it's one of the indie games that exist in its own space. I mean, there's you can say there's not a lot like a lot of things, but Tome just kind of has its own idea, and it's okay with being its own thing. Like, it doesn't need to really draw inspiration from Paper Mario other than it's 2D. Doesn't really need to draw inspiration from Animal Crossing, except for there's like little animal characters. Like, it's got its own spin on all these ideas, and that's really lovely.
I think it does a nice job of taking sort of like the spirit of these franchises and putting them in its own context. Aesthetic motifs, sort of thematic ideas, but the ways they're bundled together is quite inventive, as you're saying. So
it's definitely the best photo-based game of the year. In competition with New Pokemon Snap, which neither of us liked, and you'll notice was not on either of our lists.
Tucker, my next game, because I believe I should go again to
fine,
because mine is one that I think is one of your bottom games of the year.
Oh, probably.
And that is Cyber Shadow.
Oh yeah.
So if we're talking about Yingling being an original platformer, this is fucking Homage City.
Yeah.
But it takes it to a level of polish and design intent that is just fucking crazy. If I did knock Cyber Shadow anywhere, it's the fact that it didn't get you on board because its intro is too slow.
Sure.
By the time you get perhaps to a third of the way into the game, you are constantly being given new gameplay concepts and set pieces that keep ratcheting up the tension.
Sure.
And because of that, what begins as a pretty simple homage to Ninja Gaiden unfolds into what I think is one of the most masterful throwback platformers, period. I think this game is as good, if not better, than the original Shovel Knight, frankly. By the time all is said and done, that pixel art, the precision to which every platform and enemy is placed by the end of the game, the challenge of that boss who's just a little bit out of your reach, the speed of that reload, the placement of the checkpoints. I think that Mechanical Head Studios really came out of the gate swinging here. And I truly loved my time on Cyber Shadow, and I cannot wait to see what they do next. I hope it's not a direct sequel, because I would love to see this team have another just little pocket of reverence for the past, but direction of the future in mind. Because for as much as this looks to the 8 and 16-bit platformers and format, it does them better. Smarter design, better visuals, larger set pieces. It's really an exceptional game, in my opinion.
My number 6 is a game that I technically have not finished yet, and that is Chicory, A Colorful Tale. I am in the final boss room as of the recording of this video. We had a scheduled recording, so I had to put down the game, begrudgingly come crawling over to Abram and talk about fucking video games. But as soon as we're finished here, I will be finishing Chicory, and I'm comfortable with having played 98% of it, saying that it is one of my favorite games of the year. This game wasn't incredibly engaging to me at first.
Sure.
But I think what this game does so well is enrapturing you in a really solid core gameplay loop of doing ostensibly little dungeon overworld areas, great puzzle solving, and immersing you with these characters that are almost more well realized than anything else the industry is doing, which is super impressive. And I also like to color in the level, so that's fun. And I think Chicory is another one like Tome that maybe goes under the radar, not as much as Tome. I do think this is higher regarded, but it's short. It's on, I think, everything as far as I know.
I don't think it's on Xbox, but it's definitely on PS5 and Switch and PC. My question for you, Tucker, when you're coloring in the world, are you coloring it deliberately? Because what I would do is I would just smush my finger across the screen and switch colors. And I loved how it looked with just all these colors all over the place. But some people, because I had to look up a guide at one point, like color in each part of the world according to what it should be colored in as. Do you do that?
Yeah, that's how I'm doing
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just something so cathartic about fucking swishing my finger across the screen. I like Chicory a lot. I think it kind of lost me by the end of the game. So really? Yeah, so while I respect it quite a bit, I feel like I ship in the night with this one. It's another one I'll tip a cap to. But as you're saying, the invention of it is quite novel.
Yeah.
Yeah. My number 5, Tucker, is a game.
We're getting to the fucking big potatoes now.
We're getting big potatoes, and there are a few potatoes bigger than No More Heroes 3. Oh,
everyone's been saying it.
No More Heroes 3 is probably a bad game, but it's also so fucking cool. Now, I also got to talk to Suda51, so that's certainly coloring my impressions of it because the guy's fucking awesome. So that was a ton of fun. Shout out to him, by the way. But the game itself, I always loved the idea of being a No More Heroes fan because I used to read about No More Heroes 2 in particular in Nintendo Power. But the game was fucking M-rated. They're like booba in the screenshot, so that there's no way I'm gonna be allowed to have this game. So then when we finally played No More Heroes 1, I was like, this is good, but it's stiff, right? It's very stiff.
Well, I would say it wasn't good.
That's fair. I would actually meet you in the middle, say it's middling at best.
Yeah, okay, sure.
No More Heroes 3 just is night and day. It retains the sort of brash charm of these games, the vulgar, like hypersexualized, and like I'm using the word irreverent a lot, but it's just entered my vocabulary recently and I like it a lot.
Yes, you have.
Travis Touchdown, great protagonist, and the combat here is so much more improved. It's quite satisfying the way it's a little bit more of a traditional character action game in the context of a title that always is satirical and interesting, the way it's poking fun at first-person shooters and then JRPGs and making meta commentary about its own series or just generally artistry on a whole. I think it's a very smart game. And it's one that plays a lot better than its predecessors. So I think it combines that sort of subtextual appeal of No More Heroes with much better gameplay. So I really love this game, and I consider it to be among my favorite Switch games, period.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. Big meat and potatoes time. My number 5 is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. This is, I think, it's hard to say hidden gem of the year because obviously Square Enix, obviously Marvel, obviously these are some of the biggest concepts available in video game sphere, but this game was not very hyped when it was announced, and frankly when it came out, people were praising it, but it didn't get a lot of widestream. I combined mainstream and widespread discussion. But as time has ticked by, I often come across people on my timeline saying, I'm gonna give Guardians of the Galaxy a try. It's $20-$30 on PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, whatever. And then they're realizing, wait, this game's great. This game is actually pretty phenomenal. And I'm really happy about that because obviously I like this game quite a lot. And I do think that it tells one of the most compelling stories of the year, has one of the best cast of characters of the year. It's got some of the best visuals of the year. It's got one of the best soundtracks of the year. All these things are just amazing. It's placed on top of pretty archetypical but very solid gameplay. But when you're talking about A tier, S tier, everything else, the middle, that's okay.
Sure.
If the lowest of the game is good, but the rest of it is phenomenal, it's easily one of the best games of the year. And I still think about this game from its visuals and its characters and its story and the way that it expands the Marvel universe and the way that it finally gave Square Enix the Marvel property that they wanted. I'm very excited that this game released, was as good as it is, and we'll hopefully get a sequel that even improves on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the game plays like hot dog water, but my opinion here is not important because I think that in spite of my subjective dislike of the game, I think this is the sort of licensed game we need more of, where it's very point, it's to the point, it's a single player narrative.
Yeah.
It takes these characters but puts its own spin on them, and it just presents sort of like it's like a fucking gumbo of AAA elements. It's pulling a little bit of Uncharted's combat here, a little bit of maybe Final Fantasy VII Remake there, a little bit of traditional fidelity and polish you'd expect, kind of stirring it all together and making a game that really resonates with people who love that IP. A lot of what you're saying about that game is what I said about Fallen Order. A lot of my criticisms of Fallen Order, what you said about that. Sure, I think that there's this new crop of AAA licensed game coming out that's speaking so acutely to its fan base that it knows exactly what it is, to the point where the detractors don't matter.
Yeah,
it's a game with a vision and it executes on it. So it's quite impressive, even if I wasn't a personal fan of it. Now let's talk about a game that apparently most people aren't a personal fan of. I've come to learn. That's my number 4, The Ascent. Okay. It turns out The Ascent is not a very popular game, but I think The Ascent fucking bangs. I think that this game is almost like No More Heroes, not especially great on an objective level. I think that it's a compliment sandwich where the game's presentation is beautiful. It's like core gameplay loop is fantastic, but what's between those two things is kind of middling design.
Interesting.
But nonetheless, I think that the world of Velis is so well realized, and the twin stick shooting gameplay loop here that combines some cover elements and a really flexible RPG system was some of the most fun I had with the game all year. I played like 8 hours of this game in one day, and I never do that ever. Yeah. I never binge games. It's just not the way I play, because I find that even games I love, my enjoyment of them depreciates the more consecutive hours I play. I'm the type of person who needs to take breaks. With The Ascent, I was fucking locked in. And as much as I was swearing at my TV because some of the challenges are absolute horse shit, I didn't want to stop because it was so satisfying to go a little bit further. And it's so much customization over how my character approached combat that I was just consistently impressed by how unforgivingly old school it feels for both better and worse. And I really am excited to see what this team does next, because it's a very small team. And the next game could, yes, they are industry veterans, but it's their first game together. Yes.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So we'll see what happens. But The Ascent, I found it to be quite exceptional.
Make the Ascent. B instead of an A. I'm gonna keep going until I fucking hit Z.
The Ascent.
The Ascent. All right. My number 4 is a game that I talked about recently, but it's a game that and I know I've been saying this to different degrees, to different accuracies on a lot of games, but I think is the real hidden gem of this year is The Forgotten City. A game that has received absolutely nothing, but across the board critical acclaim, but really no one's talking about it. I mean, it's not getting the Game of the Year nominations and not getting that kind of conversation around it now that the year is out, but it deserves all of it. This game is the strongest use of time loop narrative of the year, in a year where we got like 4 or 5 of them. It is also one of the most compelling mystery gameplay loop narratives that I've ever experienced, and to the point where, like you with The Ascent, this is a game that I was locked into. I get locked in more often than you do, but I do think games that lock me in should be noted as such. It should be okay. This is in the top of the year because I didn't move my fucking I didn't pee, I didn't eat. Like, I needed to play this fucking game, and I did essentially in one sitting. It was like 5 hours, and that's a lot. And I highly implore anyone who has Xbox Game Pass, whether that's PC or console, to go play this game, because it is on that, and I would have probably paid $40 for it, because it's got the fidelity for that, it's got the writing for that, it's got the gameplay hook for that. But if you can play it on fucking Game Pass, you get it free. So for quote unquote free. This is definitely one that I will continue to think about even all these weeks later.
If they wanted people to pay attention to it, they should have called it The Remembered City. But no, this is another, I love its history of Skyrim mod to fucking full on release.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it personally compels me, but I'm very glad that it's like fucking slowly amassing just this group of people who will go to bat for it, and that's very cool. Mm-hmm. My number 3 is a game that is much lower than you'd expect it, and that's Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread, it seemed incomprehensible that I was going to like a game like Metroid Dread this year. I think Metroid Dread is a top 5 Switch game. I think it is one of the best things Nintendo has put out in a fucking long time, probably since Smash Ultimate. But I think that as a Metroid fan, I don't deserve this game.
No,
I don't deserve a Metroid game.
You don't deserve many things, but especially not this game.
No, I certainly preaching to the choir. The ways that Mercury Steam brought Samus back and reinvented her in a lot of respects. Now, a lot of the core ideas here, the action focus, the more fluid movement, come from Samus Returns, but it's fucking night and day between Samus Returns.
She's really returned now.
She's really returned. It's so amazing to play. Just moving Samus around feels fantastic. I think that the design of ZDR is quite compelling too. I love its different biomes, the way they intermingle. I think that it treats the lore so well. It's a lot bolder of a sequel than I expected it to be. It really moves the canon forward, and it puts the franchise in a very interesting position for its next game. I think that it just succeeds for me on so many levels. And while there are design missteps, like one Mr. David Jaffe has pointed out completely accurately, there are certainly instances of unnecessarily antiquated design.
Yeah.
For me, they don't take away from the net positive that is Metroid Dread. Yeah. It's an exceptional game.
I like that game a lot. Yeah, it didn't quite crack my list, but frankly, as we'll get into in a video recording soon, I think this is a very strong year for games. So Metroid Dread, not quite up there, but I still also one of my favorite Switch games. Also one of my favorite games of the year. Also my favorite Metroid game. I also really like Fusion. You know, they're kind of neck and neck for me. But yeah, we got a 2D Metroid game.
And it was fucking great.
And it was a very good game. And I can't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Number 3. Number 3 for me is Life is Strange True Colors, a game in a franchise and a gameplay style that I had never really experienced before. And I came out the other goddamn side with a fucking platinum trophy in hand and a smile on my face, because Life is Strange True Colors is really a fantastic game. And I think it's obviously the peak of its franchise, but for this gameplay style, I think it's the best of its genre.
Sure.
The world that it builds, the fidelity of its environments, and the realization of its characters in the writing, and the way that everything plays into the story, it's really, really exceptional. I mean, Square Enix with this and Guardians of the Galaxy have really turned themselves around in my mind. Not that they had been gone. I mean, obviously a lot of people love a lot of Square games, but
7 Remake.
Well, yeah. But they found a niche for me, and it got me interested in the Life is Strange series. I will probably not enjoy the other ones as much because they aren't as high fidelity, they aren't as high production value as True Colors, but giving me by far the greatest performed character this year. I think it's a fucking travesty that big booby tall vampire Giev beat Alex Chen for the fucking Game Award this year. And of course, I like Village a lot. I think Lady Dimitrescu is a good character, but the performance of Alex Chen and the way that the facial capture allows you to connect to every one of her many, many, many emotions and allow that emotional journey to attach you to the gameplay and the way that all feeds into the story and each of the characters, and then what ending you get and all of that. It's a very focused game. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. And another one of those games that I was locked into. As I said, I got the platinum. So, yeah.
I have never had any interest in Life is Strange until this one. It's not super high priority for me to get to it, but I find the just the visuals of this game very compelling. I love its color palette. I think it's very inviting. And so it's certainly on my backlog, which is more than I can say about literally any other Life is Strange game.
Yeah, sure.
So very cool. Now, Tucker, I don't know what your number 2 game is.
That's great.
And I don't think you know what my number 2 game is either.
That's
I know you're number 1. I know you're number 1.
Yeah.
You know my number 1.
Well, it's your turn to fucking talk about your number 2. So shut up.
Well, Tucker, I lied to you.
Chicory's your number 2, isn't it?
My second favorite game of the year is Chicory.
Yeah, I had approximately 15 minutes here where I was like, this isn't fucking, something's not sitting right. The fact that you passed the ship in the fucking wind or whatever to Chicory, I'm like, wait, that doesn't sound right to me.
I think Chicory, A Colorful Tale is amazing. I think this game is amazing. I think that
fucking reach into the choir.
Last of Us Part 2 made me cry last year. Chicory made me cry this year. I expected it out of Last of Us. I did not expect it out of Chicory. The reason I love this game is very personal. I think that this is one of, if not the best reflection of mental health that I've seen portrayed in a game in a long fucking time.
Yes.
I as I wrote my retro review, like it's like Finji and Chicory were reaching out and saying, "We see you, we get what you're going through, and our world's empathetic to that.
Yeah,
and it's here for you to unpack these characters' lives, but it's also an opportunity for you to reflect on yours and unpack your own."
Oh yeah,
and that is just a level of nuance and precision and warmth that I don't feel out of 99% of games.
Yeah,
I think Chicory on that thematic level is amazing. I mean, it's truly emotional. It's so deeply personal to me. I was stunned by it. And then you combine that with a world that feels so zany. All of the characters you meet with their when the game asked me for my favorite food, I didn't know what to expect. Like, okay, my favorite food is chicken nuggets. It doesn't fit. Okay, my favorite food is chicken. And then my character's name was chicken. And then I learned that every other animal's name is food themed.
Yeah.
And it just sort of envelops you in this big hug of fun. Everyone's so weird that you meet. They're so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Painting their houses, and they yell at you the house is painted the wrong color, so you switching back and forth. It's just great. There's so many little moments, and it's so heartfelt. It's incredible. And the catharsis of just smearing color around and watching this world come to life. It's stunning. I think this game is stunning. I think that Finji cracked something here. I'm so glad they published this game and curated it and brought it to everybody's attention.
Oh yeah.
Because I almost have no words for how much I love Chicory. I think it's amazing. And I think it touched me in a way that games never touch me.
Yeah, this game has a very strong intent. And we've been saying that about a lot of the games that we've played this year, but I do think that the combination of gameplay mechanic and thematic idea with art and the way that ties into artistry and personal confidence and these sort of ideas, and creating a lineage and a legacy and a world based around this one idea of how important art is to people in this world, allows it to feel more focused on everything in this fucking world comes back to your character, your confidence, and your artistic ability.
Yes.
But it's obviously intended to do that. And that puts a lot of pressure on you, and it puts a lot of pressure on the character, and everyone else is relying on you, and your character has self-doubts, and the way that plays into your relationships with the few well-rounded characters. I like a lot of the characters in this game, but there's very few that are obviously well-rounded.
Yeah.
And that focus ties in. It's very impressive what they were able to do with an emotional story in a relatively short game, a very visually simplistic game, but one that has a strong sense of style and a strong message as well.
It's staggering. It's also very funny. The game is also really fucking funny, especially when you call home to your parents. I love that. There's even one point where I called home and they're like, the dad, because people haven't played it. Whenever you're stuck in the game, there's phone booths. You can call your mom answers.
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, and your mom will give you a hint, but then you see like your dad's hand reach for the phone slowly in the conversation. Your mom's like, "Oh, your dad wants to talk to you." He always knows. He's always an oversharer. And if you talk to the dad, he just tells you exactly what to do. But there's one time the dad was like, "Okay, here's what you do." But if you don't get it, you look it up on the internet. There's hard puzzles for all of us. It's just like the game has such a great sense of humor too. It's got heart, it's got humor, its wit is so sharp. I think it's incredible game. Fucking incredible game.
Mystery time. You don't know my number 2, because I actually finished this game about 3 days ago, which might clue you in for the next 10 seconds to what it might be. But Psychonauts 2 is actually one of the best 3D platformers ever made. I think there's very little question about that.
Yeah.
The scope and content in this game, combined with the fact that it's a narrative driven platformer, is fucking mind bending. And then I say mind bending, knowing that it's Psychonauts, minds, brains, all this shit.
Yeah.
But it feels like they took the concept of creativity and went, who the fuck needs that? We have our own thing that's even more creative than creativity. Like, nah, fuck you. Here we go. Take not the grass level, not the water level, not the fucking fire area. Take the cooking show level. Take the teeth level. Take the world that is religious germs inside of a giant shoe that's also based around bowling. So you're riding around on a fucking bowling ball, squishing these germs that are holding like the end is nigh signs over their head, and everything's fucking neon lights, and there's like green smoke coming out. It's like, who the fuck came up with this? And then this crazy zany idea of serving fucking cooked character foods to giant puppets that are running a fucking cooking show. All this turns into, why is this level exist? Because someone's having an insecurity, and someone's insecurity is creating them, causing them to create this world inside their head, and you help them to unlock the ability within themselves to solve their own insecurities and their problems. And the way that Raz learns about himself and the world around him, and this history of the Psychonauts and the Psychic Six, and their histories and the levels that are presented to you, it's really quite staggering. And the creativity at hand here actually almost makes me want to put this at my number one slot. I'm this and my number one are so neck and neck. My number one, which I'll get to, has been my number one for longer, which is the only reason it's at number one. But I really think this is one of the best games. This is my favorite Xbox Studios game ever. And I really do think it's one of the best games of the year, and will continue to be one of the best games of the generation, because it's gorgeous visually. It's very well written. It's got phenomenal gameplay. Like every single beat that this game could possibly hit, it does. And I'm just like, how the fuck did they do it? What? How? It's so good. Holy shit.
I really need to play it. I really need to play it.
I really think you'll love this game. I really do.
I think I will love it also. I think it just came out at a poor time for me. I was traveling, and then I came back and my semester was starting, so I just kind of got subsumed in everything. But it's on my Series X right now. So
I think you need to push this in priority wise. And I know I give you a lot of fucking horseshit recommendations, but I know your taste in stories, in gameplay, and 3D platformers. This is, I know it's crazy. It's a linear 3D platformer. They're fucking crafted levels. These there's no fucking going off and finding moons. I like this game. Abby, you didn't steer me fucking wrong.
Abby never steered us wrong.
No.
But Tucker, it's time for our number ones here. We both know each other's number ones.
Yeah, and so does the audience, because we've been talking about these games a lot.
Yes. But so Chicory, I praised it to the fucking moon. Chicory is here. And I was lying to you, Tucker, when I said that I hated Halo Infinite, because Halo Infinite is up here. Halo Infinite is so fucking good. And we just talk about it every week, so there's really nothing new I can possibly provide here.
Yeah.
And also, I talked about why I love Halo in general in the last video. I won't spoil exactly why, because I pulled a devious lick in that video, so you should go experience it for yourself. But Halo Infinite, I'm somebody who enjoys the 343 games. I think Halo 4 and Halo 5 are good, but this game is so far beyond that. It's so far beyond even Bungie's games. I think this is the best gameplay in the series. While I prefer various tenets of 3 and Combat Evolved, which cements Infinite as my third favorite Halo game, the gameplay is just better than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And it's just been a game I've been able to get lost in day after day. I can always return to it and escape into the world of Zeta Halo or into a multiplayer match on Bazaar or whatever. It's so curious. I think its sandbox invokes so much curiosity. Like I was playing with Abby last night, and we were playing a Fiesta Slayer match. For people who aren't familiar, Fiesta Slayer is basically, you can spawn into the game with literally fucking anything. So there was a guy coming after me with a skewer. It was either a skewer or a rocket. I couldn't tell because as soon as they fired at me, boom, I used my repulsor and it bounced back at them and killed them instead. The interactions you can have in Halo Infinite are unlike the interactions you can have in any other first-person shooter on the market because it's so physics-driven in a way that other games aren't. And I think that the new tools that 343 have given you here propels that sandbox beyond where it was ever been, even in Halo 3 and Reach, which complicate it with equipment and Spartan abilities, but Infinite just takes it to a new level of intent. Again, that's the word of the day. Intent is the word of the day. Fucking Merriam-Webster, we got you today. That's the word of the day.
Yeah.
And it just feels like
343, a struggling individual.
Struggling.
That's
Miriam,
person, right?
Take a break today. We got you covered.
Yeah.
But it's so intentionally designed. This is the redemption arc 343 needed.
Yes.
Frankly,
I would say it's the redemption arc that fucking Microsoft needed.
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
Their core IP, Halo, had been
flagging,
losing fucking steam over the past generation. And this one lost steam before it even came out. People were fucking worried about it. But it released, and I would say the only real downside of it for me, other than I have some issues with the linear structure and stuff like that, is that it's not the complete package. I think it will be. With Forge and co-op, this game will be as rich and as expansive and as content complete as a Halo game could be. I think it's unfortunate that it launched without it, but what is here is obviously very good. It was one of my top games of the year. It's your number one game of the year, and the game will only get better. I think it's interesting to have our conversations looking back on things like Super Rush, where we're like, fucking Nintendo, fucking finish your goddamn game, and give them shit for it. Rightfully so. That game was fucking incomplete. This game is also incomplete, but what's there is a lot fucking better than Super Rush. So it's hard to complain about the fact that it's incomplete because the multiplayer suite and the single player are both great. Yeah, but we know it could be better. So how the fuck do you talk about this?
It's complicated, but I agree with you because I'm constantly shitting on Nintendo for not finishing their games.
Yeah,
but it's how I feel about actually Splatoon 1 is a great analog here.
Sure.
Splatoon 1 was I think people forget how little content there was in Splatoon 1 at launch. You can criticize Splatoon 2, but Splatoon 1 I think literally had 4 maps, and I don't even think ranked was in the game at launch. I think it was only Turf War. And if it was ranked, it was only spot zones.
Kind of glad I never played Splatoon 1.
But what was there was so fucking good that you forgot about it. And that's the same thing here in Halo Infinite. And the gameplay is so good, but also the narrative. While I do have issues with it, as we discussed in spoiler detail in our review, which you can go watch, I think that the ways that it humanizes Chief and the ways that it gives these new sets of characters to bounce off of is just exceptional. I think that 343 gets it now. They really get it. And they didn't lose their identity in the process, which I was concerned about, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think Halo Infinite.
Halo's got a new identity, and I think that's very exciting.
It gets a thumbs up from me.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, my number one is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I don't fucking know if there's any goddamn surprise about that. But I'm struggling to decide if Psychonauts should be my number one or this should be my number one. The one thing I will say is I do think that this has better gameplay. The gameplay loop and the variety of weapons and the movement and you get those fucking jet boots and you're zooming over the goddamn environment and you get your big thing and you get your little thing and you're shooting at the guys and it's a whole fucking kit and caboodle in this goddamn game. It's good. I did a review of this game. It's my only ever scripted review. It's my only ever edited review in my lifetime. And it's because I was so passionate about this game that I really do think it's one of the best things that Sony has done in recent years, which is impressive because this is the fucking company that gave us Last of Us 2 and God of War and Horizon and Ghost of Tsushima fucking yeah. But this is different. We know Sony for their fucking over-the-shoulder, goddamn mature, gritty action games. Fucking story-driven bullshit. But Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart dips into a different side of the coin, which is family friendliness and cartoony visuals and stuff that we don't get to see very often from Sony first party studios. And it's very exciting to have the polish and fidelity and scale and fucking particle effects in a game that does have a frankly stronger visual identity than most of what we get out of Sony studios. Sure. And I think that makes it instantly stand out for me. But also I think that it brings the Ratchet and Clank series, which has been fucking beaten into the goddamn ground, pulled up, had a Weekend at Bernie's style adventure, popped back down, resurrected, had a fucking movie, all this goddamn horseshit, but brings it to a new level, introducing a much more heartfelt story. I do think that the one thing that I learned to resonate a lot more with this year is characters with, personal issues that are learning to overcome it through, personal growth, relationships, gameplay, all of this. Rivet, Kit, Ratchet, and Clank all have problems, and they're all struggling with their identities. And how do they do that? They learn to team up. They learn to cooperate. They learn that it's okay to lean into these problems and overcome it together. And I was blown away by the fact that this game was able to tell that kind of story. I don't give a fuck about Dr. Robotnik's fucking alternate universe part.
Mean Bean Machine
Doesn't give a piss to me. Because all I care about is this set of characters and the worlds that they were able to create, and the gameplay loop and the fidelity of the entire experience, and this fucking soundtrack, which got all these amazing kicks to it. I really did fall in love with this game, and this is the game that, unlike any other this year, I was grabbed by. I was enraptured by. This was like 3 days of 8-hour fucking gameplay sessions to get that platinum at 3 a.m. and be like, I fucking did it. This was worth every goddamn moment, and it's my favorite game of the year. Unless Psychonauts 2 fucking takes it down and on a monkey's uncle tomorrow. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's a really high fidelity return to old Sony. The sort of PlayStation 2 mascot era Sony. Of course, where Ratchet and Clank came from, but it's that sort of design identity with modern Sony's fidelity, and I think that's quite compelling. And even though the game didn't connect with me, I think it's really special to a lot of people, and it's very cool. It's gotten you super invested in Ratchet and Clank. Now, of course, you love the 2016 one also, but it'll be very fun to see you chronicle the other games too. Mm-hmm. And Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is you probably won't like any of them more than that, because this seems to be, by all accounts, the sharpening of that gameplay formula to a quite impressive point. So,
but any fucking possible rekindling of this goddamn fire, I will. Sure. I will try.
You're like a heroin addict. You need that heavy.
Many have been saying this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I need to go beat Chicory. I need to go have some goddamn pizza. Anything else to say, Abram? Happy 2022, everyone. Here's to another year of fucking games.
No.
I'm gonna pee real quick.
Now, that was really quick.